Chad is more of the musician of the two when it comes to keys. Pharrell has his own sound. We know that. You know what I'm saying?
Things Chad doesn't seem to get mentioned a lot because Pharrell seems to take the limelight. But he played the saxophone on Tonight's Tonight. But so and I think Happy Home or so. But he's very quiet. We don't get to hear much about him. What was his thing when you're working with both of them? What does he bring to the table?
Here's what I say about Chad. Chad is a Pisces like me. Okay, born one day before me. Yesterday was his birthday. Okay. Chad's a very cool dude, but Pisces in general, a lot of times we are a shy sign. So I believe that Chad a lot of times may show his shy side. I'm sure he has a more open side. You know what I'm saying? Possibly with his family and with us too. We know him. You know what I mean? But the reason why we always talk about Pharrell is because Pharrell, he's not just a front man. He's the guy that made all the connections. Chad really just sort of came along for the ride on the music end of it. But Pharrell did music. He made connections. He did everything. He's the idea man. Okay. He's the everything guy. I mean, really, you know what I'm saying? The guy was super, super ambitious as a young guy. He was bursting with ideas constantly, okay? And great ideas,
Chad and Pharrell, what was different about them?
Chad and Pharrell, what they brought in, it was just different. I I didn't hear that, bro. Like, I don't know how y'all get that. And with Chad and Pharrell, they could take like you remember the group back in the 70s, the Fifth Dimension?
Okay, now.
With Marilyn McCool and her husband. There's a group called the Fifth Dimension. They was back in the 70s. One of their songs was, I forgot what soundtrack it was on, but they could take a Fifth Dimension sample and just make like a hit out of it. And you like, dude, I never would have expected that from. I probably would have skipped over that song if I was looking for something to sample. But when Pharrell and Chad bring to the studio, you'd be like, wow, I didn't hear that. And they were just different. They was different from what Teddy had, So that's what they brought to the table. They didn't have no big sounding kicks and no fat snares in their track. They just had like a vibe and a melody that would blow you away.
But then how come they didn't stay long? I mean, because they went to...
well, for some kids, they were smart too. They were real smart. They weren't gonna sit around and wait for Teddy now. The Neptunes had a whole project. Teddy actually signed the Neptunes. They were supposed to be the first group come out, and one of the projects he put on the back burner. And Chad and Pharrell, they had bigger ideas, so they didn't hang around. Mike Etheridge hung around though, but he was the singer in the group. He hung around, tried to wait on Teddy, and nothing came out of that either. But Chad and Pharrell did the right thing. They bounced early. First sign of trouble, they bounced.
I met Pharrell. He was a kid. I mean, I was a kid too. I'm older than him, but not that much. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I was out of high school. He was still in high school. Okay. But my point is that those songs that he had, okay, the first songs I heard from the Neptunes, okay, They was dope. I know dope when I hear it.
Yeah. Okay? I mean, at one time they were. I mean, still, if they do come out with anything, they're still the biggest. One of the biggest production team.
But people might be surprised to hear some of the stuff they did early. I don't know who's heard that, but my point is that my ear knew then. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's different from the stuff that people know them from.
Okay, with the Noriega and
it's different from that because of course their musicianship developed during that time, under my tutelage. Thank you very much. It really morphed. It started out him submitting songs to me for my album, and in a year or two, it morphed into, especially after 1994, and he left Teddy, and Mike broke off on his own. Then they left, and then I left Teddy. It morphed into this is the Neptune thing now. You know what I'm saying? You know, Pharrell is a very, alpha male type of guy, you know what I mean? Even at a young age, you know. And for me, I was making money, you know, that's when my royalties started really coming in for Joy and Tonight's the Night and this, that, and the other. And I was able to thrive, you know what I'm saying, financially. So, you know, the next thing was we did a couple of compilation albums. I was expecting that, you know, we had the compilation album and then perhaps we pair off, you know, from there I would get my own deal. They get their own deal. Not that they didn't have to carry me. I didn't need them to carry me, but we were together because I thought because we were having fun, you know what I mean? And but you know, listen, I'm older now. I'm wiser. You know, when other music executives come into the play, and other people, they have other agendas. You know what I'm saying? And looking back, I realized, you know, just like the story with Teddy Riley and Timmy Gatlin's saying that once Gene realized about the publishing and who's the main guy who is delivering, which was Teddy Riley. He's a producer, you know what I mean? He's not just a producer, he's a co-writer, he's a producer, but he delivers. This is what people have to realize about a Teddy Riley or, Neptune production or whoever the producer is. They're the one the record company's depending on to deliver a completed project, okay? Fully, you know what I mean? Because especially at that time, I was still learning a lot about production. I was always producing my own vocals, but and picking tracks, you know, that goes without saying, but all the other, you know, technical parts to make sure that it's sonically right, you know what I'm saying? And that it's mixed and mastered properly, you know what I'm saying? All of that, you know what I mean? So they have more than just, you know, just doing their way. I just did my little part, and it seemed little to me, but it's not little. But you know, once I did my part, I can just skip on home and start hanging out again. You know what I'm saying? And still more work was being done to make sure this is in the right spot, whatever the case is.
So Pharrell actually lived not too far from me. So we have our neighborhood was called Windsor Woods. So that's where Pharrell and I grew up. Again, he was in the neighborhood as well, in the neighborhood I lived in, but a little bit further down. So when we went to middle school, this is where we started to go to school together. But then when we went to high school, which was Princess Anne, that's when I actually met him. And when I met him in band because we both were in marching band. So Princess Anne was our high school for our area. When we went to high school, one summer, you go to band camp, drum camp. It's called drumline camp. So you're there all summer just learning your craft. I was playing the snare drum. He was playing top bass. And we developed a relationship because, number one, we were only two black guys on the whole drum line. So, you know, it wasn't like, you know, just playing by ear. You had to learn how to read music and everything with this particular program. So me and him developed a bond in that band class. And then once he realized I could sing, it was like, oh, Mike, you can sing, you know? And then he's like, you know, already starting to kind of dig into himself as a writer, which I don't even think he knew he was, but he was just an artist at that point. Like he knew he had something musically that was different and amazing. So once that happened, you know, we developed that friendship in the band. And then it went from there where he wanted to start a group. Like, man, let's start a group. And, you know, we're not really thinking so much about Teddy at this point. But then that kind of happens at the same time as we're developing. We've started going to Chaz, making music and everything already, like just sitting around. They don't know what they're doing. They just know he got a keyboard and a microphone. Me, Pharrell, and Chad.
Oh, how did you meet Chad then? Was he in the band?
Chad and see now Pharrell and Chad went to a school called Old Donation because Pharrell's mother's a teacher. She's an educator. So there was like an after school type of program for the kids. That's where they met, Chad and Pharrell. So Pharrell's like, I know this guy named Chad. He's Filipino, man. He's got a keyboard and, you know, a microphone, man. We going over there. We're going to record you. I'm going to write some stuff for you. We're going to make music. That's how that happened. So they knew each other, but me and Pharrell knew each other through actually being in the same band. But Chad and Pharrell knew each other from Old Donation, which was a program that brought students from the area together. We went to his house, and that's where we started building the Neptunes.
The story we get is that they were in a talent show, and Teddy was there, and the judge, and was that how they discovered them winning a talent show?
Yeah, he was there. I was there. Teddy was there. A lot of people from Future Records was at, the high school was walking distance from the studio, as they said. Teddy sponsored the talent show because he was trying to do positive things for the town that had to do with incorporating music and talent with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the Neptunes was the best thing at the talent show. I was there. I voted for them. I was on the panel. Teddy came, they won. And after they won, it just, from that point, it just, Pharrell, very ambitious young man, came to the studio very often. And we kept running into each other. And one of the times we ran into each other, we exchanged numbers, and I already liked the stuff that they did, but I hadn't really heard a whole bunch of it. And one time he gave me a tape. Somebody gave us a ride home, and we were all in the car together, and he gave me the tape. And after that, that's when I started bugging Teddy. I was like, you got to sign these guys. They're really good, And it took a couple of times. And then what happened was, Pharrell, being the ambitious guy that he is, he started calling me up, and we would get together. He would come to my house because Teddy's a very busy guy at this point. This is after Michael Jackson. I'm not even sure if this was the second album he did with Michael. I don't know. All I know, he was very, very busy. So although I was signed, I was waiting, and I was about to do my project. The Neptunes, were going to do some stuff for my project. And that's how Pharrell and Chad and I started working together, because we figured while we were waiting for Teddy to be ready for us, ready for me first, because, I was already there. But the point is that we started working together. And Teddy was aware. We started recording stuff in one of the other studio rooms. I think it was the A room, B room. I don't know. They had an A, B, C. I don't know which one they now. It's hard. It's a long time ago now, but we were recording in one of the other rooms there. You know what I mean? And we recorded a couple of songs. Teddy liked them. And, but then, we were waiting, and we were younger then. It was just very impatient, Now,
Tammy Lucas, she was another instrumental piece in that who you had on the show, because that was our hangout spot too. She kind of took us in like little brothers. So I think hanging out with her and her like letting us know what was going on behind the scenes. Now you got to remember, I'm younger than Pharrell. So Pharrell's like 4 or 5 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So he always, he was more mature in the sense of understanding like the opportunity than I was. Because I'm young. I'm 14, 15.
Okay.
So I'm like all over the place. Like he's thinking, a little bit ahead. And two, I think he had a different vision because he was into fashion and all of these different things
Back
that
then,
people don't. It wasn't like that came later. He was always thinking that way. So he always saw something else. But he was really the driving force, to give him credit in that, as far as like making us go to the studio. Because like we would leave the high school to go to the studio, and it was a big risk because they had security. And they had this really trained, his name's Seafood. We became great friends.
I've heard of Seafood, yeah. Teddy's bodyguard.
Yeah, he became like my big brother after, we met them, and he became like a teacher to me and everything. But it was like, man, we were afraid of this guy. You know what I'm saying? And he like, look, get out of here. Don't come back. That was the kind of things we dealt with. Trying to go to the studio. They had a policeman there. Pharrell didn't care. I'll give him that. He would be, come on, man. Come on, Mike. We going, Mike. I'm like, oh my God, again today. And every day we go until finally one day they got tired of us coming, I think. And was like, and then we knew Omar. So they knew of us, but once we got in there and Pharrell, did his thing, I did my thing, it was over from there. And see, he was a little older than me, so he could hang out there more. So that's how he ended up writing Rump Shaker you know, and really showing his talent there. And I think that's where he also developed that vision of, hey, I could do this myself. You know what I'm saying?
You know, early on, he had submitted a bunch of tracks to me, him and Chad. He submitted the tracks that he and Chad made together. And, you know, I referenced some of them, and that's how it all started. We just began to back and forth. You know, I taught them all I knew, and we worked and grew together, you know, and before I know it, I mean, in a matter of maybe 2 or 3 years, Pharrell, you know, had pretty much mastered the whole situation.
Think when you think of of Pharrell and Chad, you know, Tammy says Pharrell was the visionary. He started thinking ahead, and Chad just said, "Yeah, I'll just go along with whatever you do. I'll do the music and stuff."
Yeah. And that's what I was telling somebody the other day. I was like, like Pharrell has some help, like you said, visionary, and Chad played probably every night. Chad came in the studio with a different instrument. I was like, what? Man, it was like every night he came in with a different instrument. One night it was a trumpet, and next night it was a violin. He played so many instruments. I was like, dude played everything. You thought Prince was talented. Man, wait till you meet Chad.
Because a lot of that has to do with me. You know what I'm saying? They were under my wing for almost a decade.
Wow.
You know, and me directly, not Teddy, because Teddy didn't have time for them. And this is a lot of things people don't realize. Pharrell had to go to the studio and try to get time with Teddy. That's how he got on Rump Shaker, showing up to the studio, you know. And I give it to him because the boy had ambition, okay? He had ambition. Teddy didn't call him. He got up and he didn't even have a car. He had somebody to drive him to that studio, okay? And drive them to my house, okay? He didn't have no car. He didn't have any money. None of them did, you know? And that's why I had to feed him.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Pharrell, you know, starts to see more of a production side of this.
Oh, instead of a group.
Right. And I mean, I won't say instead of a group because he still had N.E.R.D, but it was like when you come to this point of, okay, Ted says, look, you know, right now we can get you on, offer you an R&B deal and get another check. So when that starts to happen, it's like, okay, and now you gotta remember, Chad and Pharrell have already started working with Kenny Ortiz in New York too. Kenny Ortiz was who Tammy introduced Chad and Pharrell to, who worked at RCA. Okay.
Is this Kenny Ortiz, SWV?
Correct.
So Tammy introduced the Neptunes to him?
Correct. Now, obviously, Pharrell's a great writer, you know, so he's got to follow that. So what happens when they link up with that? Because I remember we flew out to Atlanta and met with Joe Thomas. You know Joe Thomas, right?
Yeah, Joe, yeah.
Yeah. They wrote a record for him when we were in our teens, bro. I was put this way. I was 16. I couldn't even get into Magic City, the strip club. Joe loved them strippers. But we were out there at the studio with him, but they got me in and everything. So that was my first experience with that. But what I'm saying is they were already moving in the production direction. Okay. So it just made sense. But he was still keeping the group together, still, you know, because Shay, the other person who was in N.E.R.D, he was with us too, even though he's not like out front, he was still a part of it. So there was still that existence of that. But then once they started really getting those opportunities, and then once Teddy, you know, what I started doing was I said, well, I'm gonna start making my own little demos and stuff too.
And then I had to move. The Neptunes got me thrown out of my first apartment. Thank you, Pharrell, because he was so young and he would come over and try to bring everybody that he knew, and they would just get really loud, you know. And the neighbors got tired of it, you know, and I had to go over there to the renting office one day and tell them that the people tried to talk us down, I guess, because we were young. I said, no, dear. I said, we just because we do music, we're musicians, you know what I mean? It is a different thing, but you know, it's not something for us to feel ashamed about, you know what I'm saying? This is what we do, whatever the case is. Then I got another apartment, the one I really, really love. And I was there, you know, I was there. Even after I left Teddy, I still stayed in Virginia Beach because Pharrell asked me after he left Teddy, the original member of the group decided to split off. He, you know,
You said the original member?
album. That's Mike Etheridge.
You
he
know,
did his own album with Teddy.
He did say that Tammy used to cook for us. I got a message from Mike. He says Tammy used to cook for all of us.
Absolutely, I did, and you know, listen, it was a family thing all around. We were all young, some younger than others. You know what I'm saying? Like Mike and Shay are younger than Pharrell. I think Pharrell's a couple of years older than Mike and Shay, and Chad and Pharrell are older than Mike and Shay. I'm a few years older than Chad and Pharrell, but we're still all young. You know what I mean? At the time, I was 27 years old when I met them, you know, 26, 27 when I moved down there. So, I mean, and even though, you know, they had just graduated from high school, you know, like I said, we were just all young. We had a good time. I had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. Okay. Lots of laughs. And we got a lot of good music done.
Pharrell around when you were coming down? Did you Neptunes?
Yeah, I saw Pharrell. I didn't see him a lot because I think at that time, you know, I probably was catching Pharrell, right? Him and Chad, I think they finally were moving into their own studio space. They were still, but I would see them still come through and play beats for Teddy.
And you guys are probably around the same age or so. What was your impression seeing? Did you see them and think they're going to make it the same way because the sounds were different?
Yeah, because we got really, actually, me and Pharrell was cool. Like Pharrell would send me stuff. Actually, when I worked with Michael, I played Pharrell's beats for Michael. I tried to get Pharrell on Michael's album. So Pharrell sent me stuff, and the song Rock Your Body by Justin Timberlake, Pharrell gave me that to play for Michael. I played it for Michael, but Michael didn't want it because I think Michael was kind of more about, you know, track-wise in that time, in that space, he was really listening for the instrumentals, not necessarily the songs at first. But I definitely played his stuff for Michael.
Okay.
You know, Pharrell, very ambitious young man, came to the studio very often. And we kept running into each other. And one of the times we ran into each other, we exchanged numbers. And I already liked the stuff that they did, but I hadn't really heard a whole bunch of it. And one time he gave me a tape. Somebody gave us a ride home and we were all in the car together and he gave me the tape. And after that, that's when I started bugging Teddy. I was like, you got to sign these guys. They're really good, you know? And it took a couple of times. And then what happened was Pharrell, being the ambitious guy that he is, he started calling me up and we would get together. He would come to my house because Teddy's a very busy guy at this point. This is after Michael Jackson. I'm not even sure if this was the second album he did with Michael. I don't know.
So Neptune is the theme of the oceanfront. So the Neptunes wasn't like, you know, something he just said, oh, let's call it the Neptunes. That's what Virginia Beach represented and still does. If you go down there right now, there's a Neptune coming out of the water, like a guy holding a pitchfork.
Okay.
I don't know what to describe it as, but it's like mythology, Greek mythology.
Yes.
It's part of Virginia Beach culture.
Okay.
Water. So Neptunes is where that. So it wasn't the planet Neptune. Okay.
Yeah.
So this ideal of water, because we even had a song called "Wet, Wet, Wet," where we had water guns on stage and everything. You know what I mean? So that was the thing. Everything was about water. So that's where the Neptune. Now Chad kind of like was into the space planetarium type vibe. So Chad, the reason it became more about planets is because one day we came to Chad's house to rehearse or just practice, hang out like we do. And when we went in the room was dark, and Chad said, "Look at this." He turns the lights out. The room was lit, but he says, "Look, guys, I'm show you something." He turns the lights out, and he has done his whole room with space theme. So you have all of these different stickers and glowing things. The room looked like we were out of space.
Wow.
So that's where you start getting more into the planet thing of what, it meant later. But Neptune has always represented the Neptunes. The name has always been represented with Virginia Beach and the beach culture.
Okay.
I worked with the Neptunes from 91 all the way to 98 when Super Thug came out. And then even after that, I was still kind of doing stuff with them to 2004 here and there. I was on the first N.E.R.D album. I was only on one song, doing like a little background on one song. But, and even with that, I thought I would do more with that because up before that, I was on every single thing. But people switch up, they change, they're allowed to. And especially when you meet somebody when they're young, if you don't expect a young person to grow, you're from another planet. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna grow, even people that are family with each other. I mean, because you imagine, I never had my own children, but you have your own children and they cling to you so much, and all of a sudden they with their friends, that's something you have to go through because they're growing up now. They don't need you the way they used to need you. And it may look funny to some people, but listen, whatever God allows, we have to find some way to accept it and move on. You know what I mean? I thought I was going to get the album from them too. Didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, most people thought Khalees did Super Thug because she became their sort of big person that they used. I mean, were you there when they discovered her, and how did she just move in?
Ironically enough, I just moved back to New York, and Pharrell and Chad met her, because they were actually getting a little more work. Honestly, with me, after I left Teddy, when I look back, I probably should have just came home. But Pharrell asked me, for the second time, stay with us. He had left Teddy. They were trying to make a headway, but they hadn't made any at all. Okay. And I went on it started out with, after they won the talent show, I ran into them. I don't know, maybe a month or two later, I ran into them in the parking lot, and Pharrell played a cassette for me of some songs. And I was so impressed with the songs. The next time I saw Teddy, I said, you should really sign these guys. They are really good. They're not just the little talent show thing, Teddy, he was busy. He was young. That's what people don't realize. He was young too. You know what I'm saying? And so after that, Pharrell got my number and he began to call me, and I began to mentor him about ASCAP and, and all these different things on how to protect your music and stuff like that, And as well, I said to Teddy, well, I want them to write with me for my album. And that's how it all really began, with me working with them like that. You know what I mean? Pharrell and Chad, wherever they, like I said, Chad's house, they would put some tracks together, and Pharrell would submit a cassette of open tracks to me for me to write to for the Tammy Lucas album that was going to be coming out through Future Teddy Riley's label. Exactly. But I thank God because he brought me through it. I'm here, I'm still cute, and I'm ready to go. Okay. No, really, because and the thing is that, like I say, this time around, a lot of producers, they come at me, I'm not really looking for a vision at this point. I have my own vision. I've been with the best, you know what I mean? The Teddy Rileys and help the Neptunes, nurture them. People don't realize what the Neptunes went through, and how many years that I worked with them. You know what I'm saying? And it was a lot of ups and downs before that Super Thug came out.
Was that the first thing you guys
Lots
had
of ups and downs. Say it again.
Was that the first thing that you guys came out with? That's
the first thing that really said, okay, they're here now. You know what I mean? And even with that, they didn't want to, Pharrell didn't want me to be in the video. Crazy stuff. You know what I mean? Just craziness. Why? You know, you would think that, you know, I was some type of person who did something against these people, and I was their biggest supporter, the Neptunes. Ask anybody, okay? Ask anybody that was there, okay? They know, okay? And all the people at Future knew, you know what I mean? So you know, of course it hurt me and it threw me for a loop for a little while, but listen, again, I have to just say, you have to just move on. You just do. And what I say also too, like my mother used to always tell me, you can't miss what's for you. A lot of times we think a certain thing is, you know, in your mind, whether it be a...
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the Halftime Chat community. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, why don't you consider being a member? That's a way of supporting the channel, but also getting a lot of videos ahead of time, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and some exclusive content that doesn't get shared. But anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for being part of Halftime Chat.
I begin to